Good evening, Canada. We are back with our new episode of Voice of Canada. Your host, Asphandiar Wadiwalla, my co host, Ghada Hamadani. We have a very dynamic guest speaker. She is not unknown to anybody. She's a former federal minister, former MP, and current MP elect, Ruby Sahota from Brampton, North Caledon. Am I right?
You're right.
Because
You're
it's
right.
a new riding.
It's a new writing. Yeah.
So just introduce yourself with your name only. I'm Ruby Sahota.
Yeah. I'm, well, like you mentioned, Ruby Sahota, and I've been the member of parliament since 2015 in the riding of Brampton North. But like you've said, I am the member elect from Brampton North Caledon. The riding was redistributed last year, and this is the first election to have taken place with the new boundaries. The boundaries are very different for me, and I'm really excited to be representing as a Liberal for the first time in Caledon ever.
Two municipalities.
Yes, two municipalities. Yeah.
So welcome back to our show and congratulations.
Thank you
So you've run a very competitive campaign.
Mhm.
So we'd like to have your feedback, your intake, how it was. You know, if you
And really have to work very hard this time.
Yeah.
We saw.
Well, you know, as I'm looking and analyzing a lot of the vote, I had about the same number of voters vote for me in this election as I did in the last election. However, the Conservatives did have an increased voter turnout,
Wow.
and that's what made the race more competitive than in the past three elections that I've had. There was a lot of good feedback that I heard from people at the doors. I believe in my area, there were a lot more of local concerns that people had, and they voted based on those local
and you
issues.
addressed those concerns during your time last term.
I mean, some, but some are going to have to be addressed in this coming term, right?
Very
New
good.
issues that are coming up because issues develop and, take shape as years continue and different things come up. And so there are many issues, especially the one dealing with crime.
Yes.
We had Prime Minister Carney come and do a big announcement in Brampton.
Your riding?
He came to Brampton at Sheridan College to do the big
Okay.
announcement on crime. So even after becoming the Prime Minister-elect, he had his first press conference, and that was one of the first things he mentioned, working on the issue of crime, making sure that the voices
Definitely.
we heard from York Region, from Brampton,
Mississauga.
don't go unheard, and that we act on those issues as soon as possible.
That's good.
So let me congratulate you for winning the fourth term.
Thank you.
Mubarak.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Ruby ji, inform us, as you are aware, that this election was a bit different
Mhm.
because this time it was not like a general election. People immediately changed their mind because it was a one-point agenda. And that was who will be the best person who will be able to tackle President Trump,
Yeah.
who has imposed an economic war on Canada.
Yeah.
So what is your intake?
I would say nationally across the country, that was the main issue. Like I just mentioned, there were other local issues that were also played a role in this election. But the main issue is the main thing,
Everybody's
and that is
concern.
about
Number
tariffs.
one was if Canada survives, everybody
Yeah.
survives.
Absolutely, and I don't think with the impact that the economy has on everyday people, on no matter, if you don't have a job, the grocery store costs are already expensive. But without good economic prospects and without a good paying job, there would be a lot of despair. So I do think at the end of the day, getting our economy back on track, making sure that we can counter the threat of these tariffs, that we can expand our trade within our country and abroad is going to be the main issue. It was in the election across the country, and it will continue to be, I think, the main thing on the agenda in the weeks and months to come. Mhm.
Well, the economy is like once you fix the economy, this is a huge thing. Everything is gonna, fall
It's
into
Just
place.
fall
Interconnected.
into place and
Yeah,
things will be
yeah.
back to normal.
Because right now, it's like new graduate, they cannot find jobs, and it's like even elderly, it's like either they ask for experience or they say, well, you
Yeah.
exceeded the age, And this is not something,
Major
like we can.
unemployment is taking place in our
Yes,
country
yeah.
from all the sectors,
Yeah.
from automobiles and everywhere.
Everywhere. It's not only the sectors,
The
know.
Bay
it's,
is
Yeah.
closing down, and there's a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
The market is
Absolutely. And we want to make sure that we can bring back a lot of those sectors, create more of our own sustainable sectors that have our own supply chains within Canada. That is going to be really important to counter this issue.
Yes, yeah. We still, have the taxes are very high, right? It's like each person's like we're paying the taxes about 4 times.
Yeah.
And this is something important, especially it's like when you have limited sources of income.
Mhm.
So we need to lower the cost of living.
Yeah.
And, it's like I believe it's through you guys.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can work it out. And,
Absolutely. There's going to be a tax cut for the middle class. So as soon as we get back to Parliament,
with the
that
new
will
budget.
be one of the first things that we action.
That's
Mhm.
very
Yeah.
good. Okay, this election was, it's like for the first time we've seen a bit large number of voters.
Turnout.
It was, yes, like 1.95 million Canadian voted.
Mhm.
So how do you feel about the party's performance?
I think that number is not right.
19,
Yeah.
19.50.
Yeah.
19.5 million people
Yeah.
voted, and I think it comes to about 63 to 64%.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not as high as we were expecting, but a lot of Canadians did come out and voice their voice in this election. So it is good to
It was
see.
necessary.
It's much better than provincial numbers. However, I think we can bring it back up. In 2015, we had
Definitely.
touched almost 70%, and I'd love to see our voter turnout increase over the years. And so it is a good sign. We have almost close to a majority and a government
It's
mandate
only
given to
3
us.
seats are needed, and I think what I heard last from Ottawa, that the 3 MPs from the other side party, the third party, which is no more a state, it doesn't have a status also, may cross into Liberals.
We're hearing a lot of
But the
things.
Prime
I can't
Minister-
verify
Prime
anything
Minister
here today.
clarified to
Yeah.
the press that he's not going to have any formal agreement with that party.
That's true. He made it very clear
Very,
that
very
there was
clear.
going
He's
to be
not
no
going to sign
coalition.
anything, coalition or anything like that.
Yeah.
He's in a comfortable majority with the minority government also.
Yeah.
And the Canadians did see 2 minority governments of Justin Trudeau, and he managed, and that survived.
After the 2019 election, we did not have any type of a formal coalition. Even after the 2021 election, it was after some time that we entered into that agreement with the NDP. So there is a way to govern, especially given the fact that we have such a strong minority government. It's not, we weren't, this
verge of
close last time.
majority. You're
Yeah.
on the verge of majority,
Yeah.
and you can easily pass the bills also,
Yeah.
what I feel.
Yeah.
Because even whatever the independence members would definitely support the ruling party.
Yeah. Well, we're going to work hard to make sure that we present the types of legislation and bills where parties would want to come forward and put their name to that, right? There are many different national projects that we have interest in. I'm hoping that the Conservatives and, the NDP want to be a part of those. The Bloc Québécois has some interest as well. And so it will be issue to issue. And I believe that through our cabinet, through our relationships that we've already created across party lines, that we will be able to run a successful government for some time to come.
Ruby ji, as you are aware, and we all are aware, that the process of dialogue has started, and it was quite impressive. Everybody, including the premiers of all our provinces and territories, appreciated his efforts, and we found him quite a bold prime minister, interim though he's interim and that's now elected prime minister, that he openly told President Trump, "Okay, do you think that White House and Buckingham Palace will be on sale ever?"
Yeah.
And I have met the owners of Canada during my campaign, and they said Canada is not for sale.
Yeah.
So what would you say? That was a very bold attempt by our Prime Minister-elect.
Some things have to remain off the table. Of course, you often hear governments say that all things are on the table when it comes to negotiating trade deals and all of those things. But one thing that is off the table and can never be negotiated
True.
is our sovereignty.
Our sovereignty.
And Prime Minister Carney made that very, very clear.
And he was well respected, and they claim as Prime Minister of Canada.
I think when you have accolades from around the world, you have the respect of leading economists throughout the country, throughout the world. You can't help but respect somebody with that experience, that type of a resume, somebody who has been in crisis situations before. So he commands respect, and I believe that's why things turned around in this election so quickly.
And he came with a magical sword. People were not sure that the polls would go 100% towards the Liberals. And everybody was surprised. In just 2 weeks, it is something magical.
Yeah, it's not something you had to do much convincing on, because I think people were easily able to compare the resumes, compare the experience. And at this time, people are worried, just like you mentioned. They do see closures like the Bay and other companies that we've had here for over 300 years, the Bay.
Yeah.
But it was taken over by an American company. So I think there are a lot of things that we need to maybe do differently in the coming time. The US has decided to do some things differently. So will Canada. And this is a great opportunity for us to make a shift in how we do our trade. You were speaking about the premiers and the conversations that the Prime Minister has
Next
had
day,
with
he had
the
a phone
premiers.
call with all the premiers and all, and they all appreciated his
and he
efforts.
just spoke with Premier Mo Scott just now from Manitoba, and there was a good response from that conversation. Alberta as well. We need to
Even
make sure.
Daniela Smith said she's impressed that the talks have been started, dialogue has been opened.
And we want to make sure that we have first free trade across Canada, right? Canadian free trade rather than the North American free trade.
Like the previous what agreement we had under NAFTA.
Yeah, but we need to have it within our own country first, right? First and foremost. And that could unlock a potential of $200 billion for our GDP. And that's really important. So we have a really short timeline by Canada Day, this July 1st.
1st July is announcing that.
We want to have
all provinces.
Have that under works.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So back to the dialogue between Trump and our Prime Minister, do you think that would bring any relief to Canadians, especially on the trade issues?
Yeah, they had a conversation that continued behind closed doors after that. Like I said, there is respect there in dealing with these two countries. We understand the perspective that the U.S. is taking. I think Prime Minister Carney was able to establish also a mutual.
Yes, put his foot down in the White House.
Yeah,
that's the main thing.
But the fact that we both benefited, right, from this trade agreement, and Canada did not take advantage of the U.S. in this trade agreement. The U.S. did not purchase and buy things from Canada because they felt that they needed to be nice to Canada or because they felt bullied by Canada. The U.S. did it because it was profitable for them to do that, for them to buy our oil, for them to buy our resources. And they are still, regardless of what President Trump is saying today, there is a desire to work with us. And we are going to make sure that that door continues to remain open. And I think from what I have heard, the conversations after the public meeting went very well. And we're going to continue to make sure we keep the pressure on and get a good deal for Canada.
We'll be taking a short break and we'll be back with you soon. Welcome back after a short break in our program, Voice of Canada. Your host, Asphandiar Wadiwalla, my co-host, Ghada Hamadani, and our evergreen Member of Parliament and our former Minister, Ruby Sahota.
Thank you.
Welcome back after a short break. Rubiji, tell us that the dialogue must go on. So what Canadians are hopeful that G7 is coming next month.
Yes.
And we are proud to host that G7 meeting. And it's very important that they should continue that talk. The second meeting between Prime Minister Carney and President Trump should take place, and some way should be taken out now, because now the signs are showing all over Canada that there is an unemployment, uncertainty, which is going to be really effective to everyone.
Well, the conversation is going to continue, right? Because this conversation does not just happen between the top leaders. It happens between our bureaucrats, the departments of finance, trade. They have already started the work for some time, and they're going to carry on in between these two meetings. So we're hoping that during the time of the G7 that we'll have a lot of things to report by
lot
that
of
point.
things will be come out, and he will
We'll
be in
be
a better
settled.
mood to discuss also.
Well, we'll have a lot more clarity and more settlement on many issues by then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, Canadians showed overwhelming support for Mark Carney, overturning what was, once a 20 point, led by the Conservative. So, how do you assess the shift in support? What does it say about the confidence Canadians have in the new leadership?
I think it shows that people wanted an alternative. They did not
They
necessarily.
needed a leader's change,
Yeah.
change of leader.
They didn't
Leadership.
necessarily want the Conservative Party of Canada or Pierre Poilievre, but they wanted change of some
Change.
sort. We were able to present that change when they compared both options for change. Since this was a change, the other is also a change. But I think when comparing those two options, I'm glad that many Canadians felt that that Mark Carney had what they were looking for in the right type of change. So, we're very fortunate to have been able to bring on a prime minister of his caliber, of his background and experience, and it's going to be good to be able to work with him side by side in the years to come.
As you're talking about the chain, so let me put in one or two sentences in it, that people really felt the change because this time we did not need a prime minister whose qualification was from the indigenous, homegrown person into politics.
Mhm.
We needed somebody, a strong economist, a technocrat, to deal with issues which are pertaining just now, confronting Canada.
Yeah.
So would you agree to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, once again, people compared. And the unique thing about Mark Carney, Prime Minister Carney, was that he, like you've said, is not a career politician and was somebody with real world experience.
And that made really easier for many people to convert people into liberal votes.
Absolutely. I mean, also, I bumped into people who said that they had only voted Conservative their whole life, and for the first time they were voting Liberal. I also met people who said that they had always voted Liberal and they were now changing. So this election was very unique in terms of, the previous question, where people had switched their votes around many different ways. NDP split at parts. They didn't just go progressive. They also went in some areas conservative. And we had conservatives voting Liberal and we had Liberals voting conservative. So it made for a very mixed bag of election results on election night throughout the country. Very different areas voted in different ways. I can tell you from my own riding, different conversations I had, I could feel that different areas of my riding really resonated with the national issues. And some areas of my riding, their focus was the local issue. Depends on where you lived in the riding.
There. Nobody denies that.
Yeah.
But the local issues took secondary place.
Yeah.
Everybody was worried about Canada.
Yeah.
Our sovereignty.
As you should be. Yeah.
Should be.
Yeah.
And as you were aware, I was outreaching for one of the other member of parliament and federal minister from Mississauga. You won't believe one community which is always used to vote for conservative only, but we were able to break the ice.
Really?
And they all voted for Richie.
Wow.
And the nearest competitor was beaten by 4,000 votes.
Wow.
A good lead.
Yeah, very good lead.
So especially for you, it's like we were talking about the riding, it's like now you have Caledon and you have a new voters from Brampton and Caledon.
Yeah.
So how that challenge, it's like, how did you face that challenge? So were you able to reach out to, it's like, we cannot say all.
No, that's the challenge. You can't meet everyone.
Because Caledon has always been supported by Brampton, a region of Peel.
Yes.
I would say, Brampton and Mississauga.
So it is a part of the region of Peel, but I would say it's very unique as well. I mean, it has its own municipality with different priorities, and there's different issues. Like for the first time, I will have dairy farmers to represent,
over there.
and like
it's all a farmland.
there's quite a lot of people who live in the rural parts of the riding and have very different issues and priorities and concerns that I would have to represent in Parliament. And so that's why it's an exciting opportunity
So
for
it's
me.
a bit different.
I mean, some parts are different, some parts are similar.
Mhm.
There's some issues that are national no matter where you go. Like
yeah.
people care about the economy no matter what. But there are other issues there to tackle. And so it's going to make it very different for me. But I think also exciting and nothing that I can't handle. I will have to definitely attend more events and more things to try to get to know people in both
Definitely.
municipalities. I've developed a good relationship with the city council, and that's very important to me too.
A few months ago, we had invited the mayor of Caledon for
Mhm.
information because I know her since long.
Okay.
She's in the political arena since quite a while,
Uh-huh.
for nearly, I would say, 20 years.
Okay.
She came over and we talked about Caledon, why Caledon is depending, and you all are not issuing construction permits and all that. You
Mhm.
don't want to expand. So she says, no, we are doing our level best, but still we cannot earn that much income which can match to Brampton and Mississauga.
Yeah. Well, we helped her on behalf of the federal government. I was able to announce a accelerator fund project of $14 million for the city, for the town of Caledon,
Very good.
to Mayor Grove, so that she can
Groves, yeah.
expand
Expanded.
in terms of building housing. For the Housing Accelerator Fund is particularly given to those municipalities that show ambition and change their zoning plan according to what our priorities are, which is building more homes faster and cheaper. And giving more variety to people so that they can, at their older age and at a young age when they're just entering the market, also have options. And so Caledon did that. Caledon had to fight a fight at City Hall with its residents as well, but they are now making sure that they're continuing to grow.
Mm-hmm.
In the right areas where we need to create density and more transit. Those are big issues in Caledon, to have services and to have transit. These are the growing issues that Brampton probably faced 20 years ago, but now Caledon is facing them. Yeah.
Well, now the Liberals are forming minority government, facing a strong opposition. So how confident chairs like that, Mark Carney, will endure? Especially if the trade issue keeps going, in the USA. So,
well, only time will tell that. I think the average length of a government is generally 18 months of a minority government,
and
I should
18
say.
months is exact
for a minority. But our last minority, we went over 3.5 years. And that is a record-breaking minority rule in the history of Canadian politics.
Correct.
And I think anything is possible after having the experiences I've had. If you're able to work across party lines, if you're able, I hope if Pierre Poilievre is also, interested in making sure that we quickly deal with some of these big issues, he will have to show some maturity and some balance on his side as well. I believe that is what people saw in Mark Carney and why they were appealed to him, is because he brought seriousness and a lot of maturity to this race.
But now when the House opens, you will find a difference. The new interim leader who has been selected by the Conservative is a quite moderate guy. I've known him personally, and I worked for his campaign also last time when he fought the leadership race. Mm-hmm. So things would change. It won't be so unruly what it was previously. Let me assure you.
I've worked with Andrew Scheer as well in my capacity as whip before. He was the House leader, and we've worked together on many committees before. So I look forward to being able to work with him. He's a
broad-based man.
Yeah.
He listens well, and he will act also. We have seen him that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
the unruly thing won't be there till early or fall.
Well, here's hoping that I think Canadians really deserve to see Parliament work. Canadians generally do not want to go to another election.
We can't afford that
right away. And so I don't think they would be very happy if everyone didn't give their sincerest sincerest effort to be able to make things work.
So would you outline some projects which are pending in your riding,
Yeah, I mean,
which you are planning to do?
one of the big pending projects, in not particularly necessarily right in the riding, because I don't think I see the city of Brampton in that way. But there is the LRT, which we just preemptively announced before the election as well. I want to see that get underway and expand through the city of Brampton from Mississauga, because that was a project that was on hold for some time. The previous council has had a hard time making a decision on the route of that light train, but now they finally have come to a decision, and we're able to help fund that project and see it across. So I'm looking forward to being able to do that.
But yeah, sorry, that line specifically is like between Brampton and Mississauga side. It's on here in Ontario, and here in Ontario is very well connected through buses. And if you look at the buses, it's always empty. Wouldn't that be more beneficial if it was west to east and instead of south to north? And it's like people goes from west to east usually. It's like to Toronto where they have their jobs and stuff.
Yeah, so the BRT is important as well, which would go down Queen Street. That's a project the city has outlined. However, we don't want this light rail train to just end in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't make sense to end at Steeles. We've had ridership increases in Brampton of 18% more than any other city in the country. So our buses are always full. Our bus stops are full. There's not a single bus you could point to me in Brampton that is not full at all times. And if anything, we usually are expanding and double loading our buses. Yeah, our buses are, there's no city in the country with buses as full as we have.
The population is increasing.
Yeah.
Every year we are having immigrants.
Yeah. And this would be different than a bus, right? It would connect into the GO train station. I'm hoping in the future it could connect to Mount Pleasant as well as just the downtown GO. And that brings you into downtown Toronto, right? So having that connected grid is very, very important. Yeah.
Well, time flown by very fast with you. And we'd love to hear your remarks, your thoughts.
You would like to hear your final thoughts to our viewers, to all the people of Canada, at the same time, your own riding also.
Yes. I would like to give a heartfelt thanks to everyone in Brampton, North Caledon for the support and the kindness and generosity that you've shown me over the last several years, and also in this election as I came to your doorstep. The fact that you opened the door, had many conversations with me, that was so important in order to inform me going forward, to give me the ability to serve all of you my hardest, so that I can make all of those conversations, take that feedback and turn that into reality. So my commitment to all of you is that although I have worked hard in the last 9.5 years, I will work even harder to make sure that your voice and your issues are raised on Parliament Hill, and that I'm able to work in a collaborative way with all parties and with my own colleagues to deliver for Brampton and to deliver for Caledon.
And now a few words for our Punjabis.
Yes.
In your Punjabi language.
ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਦਿਲੋਂ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਵੀ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਤੋਂ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਤੋਂ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਮਿਲੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਵਕਤ ਤੋਂ। ਉਸ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਦਾ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ। ਐਂਡ ਆਈ ਵਿਲ ਨਾਟ ਟੇਕ ਯੂ ਫॉर ਗ੍ਰਾਂਟਡ। ਆਈ ਵਿਲ ਮੇਕ ਸ਼ੋਰ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਰੇਜ਼ ਕੀਤੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਵੀ ਉਸ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਤੇ ਚੰਗੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਉਠਾਈ ਜਾਵੇ, ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਇੱਕ ਬੁਲੰਦ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਰਹੂੰਗੀ।
Thank you. With that note and a powerful message from our guest speaker, MP-elect Ruby Sahota, we thank you once again that you came to our show in spite of your hectic schedule, and you have got a long way to go.
Yes.
You will be planning for Ottawa soon, and we wish you all the best, and we really hope that when you return, you come as a strong federal minister as well.
Thank you so much.
So with that note, we would say goodbye.
Congratulations again.
And we will have you again as our federal minister in our show. So don't forget us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So we would be saying good night, goodbye. God bless Canada. God save our King.